Today, we're diving into the world of CRM automation with Jason Kramer from Cultivize. Get ready to unlock the secrets of lead nurturing and discover how cutting edge CRM strategies can revolutionize your sales process. Let's explore the future of customer relationships together. So, with that, Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, great to have you aboard. And I know a lot of the different organizations that dial into the software spotlight every week are always interested to learn new things. And I was hoping we could take a deep dive into everything you're doing over there. But to start with, can you give our audience a little bit of background on yourself and Cultivize and what's brought you to where you are today?
Sure. Jason Kramer, founder of Cultivize, based in New York. I'm a husband, father to two kids, two-time business owner, speaker, as we can see here today, for those watching, and a captain as well.
Very nice, very nice. And what is it that your team over there at Cultivize focuses on?
Sure. So, Michael, we help companies unlock the mystery of their tech stack, specifically when it comes to their sales and marketing. So, often problems we see are there's pipeline leakage, leads are coming in, but they're not being tracked properly. Dollars are being spent on marketing, but there's no way to connect the sales activity to the marketing. So, we don't really know what's working and what's not working, making it difficult for the marketing team or agency to really do their job effectively.
Sure.
We also, as you know, dealing with a lot of salespeople, there are a lot of repetitive things that a salesperson does over and over, day in, day out. And what do they want to do? They want to sell, right? We often come in and help automate and systemize those repetitive tasks to make them life a little bit easier. And the last thing we help do is really advise companies that either have no technology in their company, which is really usually how we start a conversation, or they have technology, they really just don't know what they're doing with it, or they're not sure if it's really working. And so we'll come in and help evaluate that to make things more streamlined from not only an operation standpoint, but also potentially save some money and make things more cost efficient.
That makes great sense. And as far as a lot of the solutions that you're providing, how does the process work? Would a company, normally come to you with the challenges that they have and you kind of guide them through some of the different options, or do you start with a platform, or where do you usually
So
start?
we never start with the platform ever, because I'm a big component that software by itself doesn't solve the problem, right? You need to have the people and the personnel and the expertise and the strategy to kind of know whether or not that solution will help. And you and I have been in software for a long time. We know that there's not one magical piece of software that's going to solve all your problems. And I always tell
Exactly,
people, if we
exactly.
get like 8 out of 10 things solved, like that's pretty good, with one piece of software. So where we start, yes, they might know some of their problems, to your point before, but often as we peel back the layers, you will start discovering things that they didn't even realize were a problem. And so our job is to really dive deep into not only what are their issues and concerns and needs today, but what are they going to be maybe a year or 2 years down the road? Because we see also sometimes companies will dive into a piece of software, whether it be a CRM or something else, and it's solving an immediate need, but then they outgrow it a year down the road, and now they have to start all over again from scratch. So we really want to make sure that the technology we're bringing in and the strategy is going to be able to grow and be sustainable as they grow their business.
So do you typically see, what does the world look like when a client first reaches you? Do they usually have something in place that's just not working?
Yeah,
Or, what
it's
what what is that initial conversation usually?
it's always a surprise, and that's what I love about it. It's always interesting to see what people do. I was just recently started working with a company that is a pool distributor. They have a retail location, a big outfit. And when I spoke to them, I knew they didn't have any system. But when I went there physically in person, because even though we're based in New York, some of our clients are close by. We could go meet them in person, which we do. But that doesn't mean we couldn't work with anybody anywhere. Everything that they had their system, Michael, was writing things on manila folders. And all
Oh,
the
you
manila
kidding?
folders were sitting on the desk in the showroom on the front desk. And that's where all notes were taken last time they spoke to somebody, the next steps, which is wild, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so the most common thing that happens, people write stuff down. Google Sheets is very popular. People just keeping a spreadsheet, but it's manual work. It's hard to remember, keep track of things, find things. Reporting is pretty much impossible, to really any kind of value. So I would say that's usually the case. And then the other extreme of that, or the flip side of that, Michael, is that they have some type of software, but they're just really not, they're underutilizing it, and they have it a lot of times because of an emotional level, meaning, oh, John, my best bud, owns this company. He uses XYZ. I'm going to use it
Yeah.
because he says it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
But just because it's good for John doesn't mean it's good for you. So we also see that sometimes too.
And do you focus, or do you mainly see clients in certain industries, or is it really industry agnostic what you're doing? Or
It's industry agnostic, but the exceptions would be, I would say this. So the clients we typically tend to work with and see really good results with are those that have a sales team. It doesn't have to be 50 people. We work with companies, there's 2 or 3 salespeople, right? So, but there's a sales team and somebody actively, their job is to grow the business through business development, means. Um, the other factor we tend to see is that they're spending money on marketing, right? They're not just waiting for the phone to ring or getting referrals, but they're actively investing and trying to grow their business. That's another piece of it. And the third piece is that they're usually selling something that's a little bit of a higher ticket sale, Michael. So they're
sure.
not selling a bouquet of flowers for $20, which
Right.
is,
Right.
is like an impulse buy. They're selling something for thousands of dollars typically, or more, or hundreds
Yeah,
of
where
thousands of
where they might
dollars.
have a team of SDRs or BDRs or other
Exactly. And
types of reps
so,
that are following
right.
up on
So that sales
opportunities.
process tends to be a little bit longer. No one's walking into a showroom, although it happens today, and buying a $75,000 pool. You're kind of doing some research and kind of, buying that, when you're able to or want to. So that's the typical audience. But most of what we do is a lot of B2B businesses, manufacturers are a big one for us, as well as other sectors could include, like, for example, like the consumer, direct to consumer
Yeah.
businesses, like roofing companies, the pool construction companies, and those like that as well.
Now I know a lot of retailing has changed big time
Hmm.
over the last few years, and we've seen more of this omni-channel, going directly from the manufacturer all the way to the consumer without a lot of the different steps in between. Are you seeing different kinds of clients because of the way retailing has changed? Maybe clients are coming in looking for the capabilities to integrate with different marketplaces where in the past maybe that wasn't an important component of what they were doing.
I will say this. I will say that we are not a marketing agency. However, so for the listeners, really our role. I like to use the visual of a front door to a house because everybody knows what that is.
Sure.
So a marketing team or a marketing agency, which is not us, will get somebody to your front door and get that person to knock on the door, and that's where they stop. Our job is to open the door, invite them in, sit them on the couch, get to know them, and start building a relationship with them on
Sure.
behalf of our customers, right? And to bring them through the sales process. That being said, I definitely have seen a trend in the last 5 years or so that companies are more open to the idea that there's multiple forms of communication that are needed to make that sales journey favorable to the buyer, right? Because the buyer's in control. So if the
Sure.
buyer wants to talk to you via text message, well, guess what? You got to text them, right? If they want to talk to you via LinkedIn or Facebook, well, then that's how you talk to them. And so, as long as you're willing to be flexible and you have the infrastructure to do so, and everything could be tied together so you know where things are at in terms of your data and your last touch points, then yes, I am seeing some companies that are going towards that direction. Um, but I wouldn't say all of them are.
Yeah,
I
so it's really all of the
yeah.
communication channels that are kind of like the
I would say it's more
key
the
to,
communication channels than
yeah,
anything. I mean, certainly, yes, there are businesses that are using very different marketing strategies, but that's not my wheelhouse. I know
right.
about them, but it's
So
not
you're
my
you're
specialty.
helping with the conversion, right? Right.
Correct.
Basically, once the client ends up at the front door, making sure that they get all the way through and turn into a sale.
Yeah, because the reality is that we both know we've bought many things and we've sold many things. Not everybody's going to buy on day one or day five
Right.
or day 10, right?
Exactly.
So, but you don't walk into a car showroom because you're not interested in buying a car. It's not like, oh, I have nothing to do Sunday afternoon. Let me just go to 3 different car dealerships and look around.
Right.
Like nobody really does that. I mean, some people probably do, but
Yeah, but you're
most people
helping to
don't.
nurture the
Most
whole
people don't.
relationship.
Let's just
Yeah.
yeah. So the point is, if they're talking to you, they have the the inkling that they want to buy something, maybe something you sell. But if you're not staying in touch with them and nurturing them and building that relationship, they're probably just going to buy from a competitor when they are ready to buy. That's the bottom line.
So, and I go all the way back to the days of ACT and Sugar CRM and some of those
Hmm.
early products. But in today's world of CRM, is the CRM kind of sitting in the middle of everything, like in terms of many organizations? Obviously, you mentioned all of the generation to get the visitor to the front door, but in terms of all of the other components of an organization, maybe a company has a ERP system that's handling all of their manufacturing or all of their distribution or their warehouses or their sales channels.
Hmm.
Is it sitting in the middle of a lot of that, or where do you see it sitting at this point?
It usually sits in two places. Either it's the one all be all platform, so marketing and sales and communication, outbound email marketing is all happening through that CRM if it's capable of those functions,
Hmm.
or it's focusing just on the marketing functions. So if they have, let's say, a Salesforce or a NetSuite or some other tool that's designed really more for accounting and the sales team,
Sure.
then what we provide is the marketing piece, right? Because a product like Salesforce, while it's very sophisticated, unless you want to use, what used to be Pardot is now Marketing Cloud as the automation and the email component, then you're forced to use some other piece of software because Salesforce on its own can't do the email marketing piece, that we would provide.
So what is the foundational question that a company should be asking, or the handful of foundational questions they should be asking before they're making a transition to a new platform? What are the things they need to do a little soul searching to figure out, you know, how to
Yeah,
take
I
that
mean
next step?
that's a great question. I mean, so there's a few things that I would say definitely to look for. Um, so you have to keep in mind who in the team is going to be using the platform, right? Is it a younger generation, mid generation, older generation? Because one of the things we often find is the biggest influencers of adoption is the usability and is it user friendly? If it's not
Hmm.
user friendly, then nobody's going to want to use it. So that's one thing for sure to look at. Another thing is you mentioned before about, I believe, integration. So, what if you already have an ERP or an accounting software or something else? Is there native integration? Will your new software that you want to buy, the CRM, plug into that, or do you have to build something custom, or can you use something like Zapier, which is a great connector tool? So that's something that's usually very important. Another thing is customization. What we often see, especially in different verticals like landscaping or even like dental practices or specific industries, there's a lot of CRMs built for that industry. Some are good, but a lot of them they're in a box, meaning you can't really customize them to your specific business needs. So what we find is a lot of companies are very frustrated by that because it's not really allowing them to operate their business, and they're having to change the way they run their business or the information they collect because the CRM can't meet their demands and their needs. Um, Another thing also you talked before about automation. Not every CRM platform can do automated functions, so that's something that is important. Um, we also talk about before we mentioned about scalability. So you know, does it have the features that you need today, and does it have the features you may need down the road, right? So most systems are selling the bells and whistles, right? All
Right.
the
Yeah.
shiny objects. You may not need all shiny objects today, but maybe you need them down the road. But if there's only two shiny objects to offer, right, then there's not really much to grow into. So we always look about that scalability. And I see the last three things really are some companies don't realize, I mean, they do know that they have a mobile sales team, outside salespeople on the go, but they don't think about how is that team going to use the CRM. So for sometimes it's important that there's like a mobile app or some easy interface that the sales team can use on the go. Sometimes we've seen that as a friction point where they've just bought this new CRM. It's beautiful when you're sitting at your desk, but when you're on the go, it's completely useless. You know, so that's something that we have to look at. Um, the other thing also, which I think is one of the biggest ones, is the support and training. Michael, we often find that when you go directly to a software company, you're talking to a salesperson who's going to tell you everything you want to hear, right? They're going to
Best
sell
thing in
you
the
the
world,
product,
right?
right?
Yep.
And then you're going to buy it. And then you're going to realize, okay, well, now how do I use it? So now you're going to get support, which is really just tech support. They're only going to help you with problems you're having. They're not going to give you any sort of advice on strategy on how to use the tool. Um, and support was not involved in the sales process. So they know nothing about your business, about your needs, about your problems. So you have to regurgitate everything to them. And then there's no one there for ongoing strategy, right? So like how are you actually going to help like grow with the system? You're gonna have to learn it yourself. And the Harvard Business Review did a study a while back saying that 69% of businesses that try to adopt the CRM on their own will fail. They'll
Wow.
fail not because they're not trying; it's they don't know how to do it. They don't have the technical expertise. They've never used the technology before, um, and it's just going to be a struggle. And maybe they're okay with that. Maybe they're like, okay, we're willing to take a year to figure out how to use the software, but that's a long time, right? To invest, even
Yeah,
6 months
it
is a
sure
long
is.
time to invest to figure it out. Watch tutorials, watch videos, and so you really want to, before you buy any, in my opinion, any software, what does support look like? Am I going to be able to talk to somebody on the phone? Am I going to be able to get on a Zoom call? Are they going to just send me a link to pre-recorded videos that have nothing to do with what I'm looking for? Right. Um, to me, that's like a huge factor into just making you feel good and like taking some of the stress out of your life, knowing that there's someone there to hold your hand and help you along the
Yeah, and
way.
I think that's an important component that you know, a lot of organizations don't take into account. Yeah, getting up and running is one thing, but once you are up and running, there's a lot of subtle tweaks and
Hmm.
things that you just can't plan, you know, until you kind of get into the situation and you see something come up that, maybe you had never envisioned might be something you need to deal with, and how do you deal with that along the way. And I think
Yeah.
obviously starting with a consulting team that has been there and done that is important, but you know as well as I do that things come up, and sometimes you have to make some corrections and tweaks along the way. So
Hmm.
that's really
Absolutely.
important. So how about integration with um, websites? Is that kind of a very straightforward thing at this point? You have some very, common platforms like WordPress and
Hmm.
Shopify and some of the other, e-commerce sites, but is that something that companies should really focus on before they pick a platform, or?
1,000%.
Okay,
So there's a lot of CRMs out there that will not integrate to your website. And to me, that's like a huge loss, a loss for sure. I mean, and the reason being is that imagine yourself talking to any company you're looking to do business with. You're going to go on their website at some point, right, to check things out. You
sure.
may download a white paper, you may sign up for their newsletter. You may even get emails from them that you might be like, oh, you know what? They sent me these 10 emails. I don't care about 8 of them, but this one email caught my attention. I'm going to click a link and look at something. If you don't have the ability to track all that activity in the CRM and to not only track it, but to alert the salesperson to say, hey, salesperson, I use the term hand raiser, right? So, is this person raising their hand sending the signals that there's some level of intent that they want more information or they might be ready to buy.
Sure. Get a
And
Slack
so,
message to them, get some sort of communication to the sales rep.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And so, one thing outside of CRM that, some of you, I know you probably knows, I'm sure, but maybe the listeners don't know, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. LinkedIn has a feature which not everybody knows about. If you're on your phone using the LinkedIn app and you see a green dot next to the person's name, that means that person is in the LinkedIn app as well. And so if you're trying to connect with them, you're going to have a far more better chance of getting them to respond to a message when you see that green dot versus when you don't see it. And
Oh, I love
so,
it.
those are the type of signals you want to be looking for as a salesperson to say, when is my best possible chance, right? So think of solar people, right? There's solar people all throughout the US selling
Yeah,
solar,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? They're most likely not going to knock on the door if they see no cars in the driveway. But if they see cars in the driveway or they see the kids out playing,
They're
in the
there.
yard, they're like, okay, somebody's home. There's somebody there that I could talk to. Like, I'm going to go knock, right? It's the same thing. Or if it's, you mentioned retail, if someone's just walking, through the mall, but then they go into a store and they start flipping through the racks, well, that's somebody showing interest. Okay, I might be interested in buying something here, right? And if
So all of
the,
these engagement signals are key.
they're all signals, and
Yeah.
so if your CRM can't pick up on these signals, then that's unfortunate, right? And sometimes it's the way it is, and you have to kind of work around that. But you really want to be able to have those signals at your fingertips, because that could be the difference between a sale or no sale.
Now, I know you touched on communication and being where your consumers are, but customer service is obviously another huge area that the CRM, is central to.
Hmm.
So being able to provide things like order lookups for customers, that's probably one of the biggest areas of customer service that can tie up an office in terms of
Hmm.
manual hours, for easy things that could be done in an automated fashion. Is that something that's commonplace now? Being able to do automated order lookups, or not so much through a chat
Yeah, I think it's
interface
depending
or
upon the
something?
scenario, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing that's really big too is, an organization. So I mentioned we deal with, like, a lot of manufacturers. So we've seen the case over time and time again where a new salesperson will join the team, and one of their first tasks is, here's our top 1,000 customers or 100 customers, that we do business with, or here's our list of 100 customers that haven't bought from us in the last 6 months. Reach
Sure.
out to them, right, and start and introduce yourself to build a rapport. Well, they need access to all the information. If they could call John and say, "Hey, John, hey, Mary, like, I'm calling, I know you ordered XYZ widget from us, 6 months ago. How did it work out? Do you need any more? We have this other thing that was just like what you bought that you might actually maybe didn't know about." So absolutely, you want to be able to connect all that data to make not only the lookup piece more effective, right, and make that easier, but to arm your team again with information. I'm all about giving the team the most information you can give them to succeed, but also even using that information in your content as well, right?
Yeah, I
So,
mean, before
you
a
know,
call even comes through the queue, the person picking up the phone should know who they're speaking to, every last detail about every transaction, everything that's
yeah.
happened. And I think
Mhm.
for a lot of consumers sitting on the other side, it may be surprising the amount of data and all of that that's out there. But I can't tell you how many times in a lot of the organizations that I've worked with, you know, data is absolutely a key differentiator and can really help to distinguish an organization.
Mhm.
So, can you share uh, like an example of a kind of like a day in the life, maybe a before and an after of a client, and what life looked like before and after they went through your whole process and got up and running, and maybe a success story or two?
Yeah. So the most common one I can give, so I'll give a new one of a roofing company we just started working with. And again, the industry and the company doesn't really matter that much because the problems are all very similar. But they went from having no system at all. The owner was trying to manage everything in a spreadsheet. They're a team of four salespeople, two girls in the front office. So it's a small team, and they spend almost six figures a year on marketing, right? And they do everything. They do radio, they do TV, they do social, they got yard signs, they got trucks driving around. You
Yeah,
name it, they're kind of doing it and trying it. And so the biggest change we were able to make for them, Michael, and to recognize in less than 60 days was that their Facebook marketing was bringing in really poor quality leads.
Yeah.
And yes, it was high volume, but they were just wasting their time, because not particularly because of Facebook, just whatever the strategy was, it just wasn't working for them, right? So I'm not knocking Facebook,
Yeah.
but then they were also able to see that some of the things they didn't really kind of think were um, that effective, like for example, yard signs, they made almost $100,000 in less than 2 months from yard signs. And the way we knew that is because we put QR codes on all the yard signs. People would scan a QR code, go to a specific landing page, fill out a form for an estimate, and we can track that in the CRM that it came from that, from that QR code and that yard sign. So their marketing, we were able to convince them to drop some of the marketing they were kind of questioning, whether it was working or not.
Sure. And then
And
you can
then
refunnel that money
exactly.
elsewhere. Yeah.
The other thing we were able to do for them, again, within that 60-day period, was they had no follow up process. So they average about 1,000 quotes a year for these roofing jobs. And as you know, I don't know if you own a house, Michael, but doing a
Sure
roof,
do. Yeah.
$20,000 to $50,000 project, right? Give or take. And so they would write quotes, and if the salesperson remembered, they'd follow up, and that would be like just you know like no rhyme or reason. Oh, I have some downtime. Let me follow up with some people I reached out to recently. And so what we did is we automated that process. So every couple of weeks, an email was going out automatically to the homeowner saying, "We've sent you this quote. Do you have any questions?" And a sequence of these emails would go out with different types of messaging. And then on top of that, they want to nurture leads for a year, right?
Mm.
They're saying basically, we're not going to give up. We're going to commit to for 1 year. And if after 1 year they don't want to do business with us, that's fine. But now there's an extended sequence that's reminding the salesperson to reach out. So every month, it's every 8 weeks, actually, it happens. So 6 times for the balance of the year, the salesperson will be prompted, call Jason. It's been 8 weeks, been 2 months since you last spoke to him. Here's a couple of emails you can send if you want to send it, or you could call. So we're kind of giving instructions and guidance
Sure.
there.
Sure.
And so what we're finding there is that they're closing more because now they're remembering to follow up with people, right? And the messaging is more professional. Before each salesperson would just write a message, and some people were better than others, their writing
Yeah.
skills,
Yeah.
right? So now we could systemize and uniform all of the messaging to make it more professional. Like this is a real buttoned up organization. It's not somebody just operating out of a basement, who's got bad grammar.
Yeah, and then everyone in the organization's working from the same knowledge base. Everyone
Exactly.
is working with the same answers. So, no matter
Yeah,
who they speak to in the organization, they're getting a similar answer and a similar
exactly.
process.
And
And
one
yeah.
of the biggest things that beyond all that they've been able to help them with, we have a feature in our CRM that we use, and it's in different CRMs as well, Michael. It's called email sync, and really, it's really quite simple. All it does is when you're sending an email from Outlook or whatever you used, or you're getting an email from a prospect, it's going to put a copy of that email into what we call life of the lead. And what that is a visual timeline that is all the interactions between you and that prospective customer. And so now all of the email communication is all synced to the CRM in real time. So if Joe is out because he's sick or he's on vacation, and you're a salesperson, you could go in, or the owner of the company, you can see all the communication back and forth between Joe and the prospect. All in the course of events of how it happened. So that really is helping them be, again, we talked before about communication, being able to communicate with the customers a lot more effectively because they don't have to go digging through finding emails and what did Joe say? What did Joe promise? Or
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So yeah, that's a huge one.
Yeah, and the same type of thing. Maybe you're really not focusing on a specific customer service person or a specific salesperson having to be the one to, you know, take a prospect from the beginning to the end. It could be, the baton could be handed from one person to another,
Yeah.
for the availability of somebody in sales or somebody in customer service that can
Hmm.
really help that customer, and if a salesperson happens to be out that day, it's not as if that customer is not taken care of. So that makes a lot of sense. And for a lot of the listeners who are listening to this segment, there is a very wide variety of CRM platforms out there. Are there a handful of platforms that you and your team have developed the most experience with and have worked with clients the most on, that you see day in and day out, that your team is
Sure.
working with a lot?
So I would say in terms of the most um, comprehensive, I don't want to say capable because a lot of them are capable in different ways, but the most comprehensive to have the contact piece, right? All the data about your customers, your contacts, your prospects, to have the email marketing component, to have the sales tools and the reporting and the website integration we talked about that's so important, and all these other features. The two that we have gravitated towards and we've worked with a lot, HubSpot, which most people know. And then the other one is a product. It used to be called Sharp Spring, which you could still find it online. You could go to our website. We have information about it. They actually got bought 2 years ago by Constant Contact, which is like the grandfather, if you will, of email marketing.
Sure.
But so now it's through Constant Contact. It's called Constant Contact. Lead Gen CRM is what they call the tool. But you can go to the Cultivai's website and find information about those. The other ones that we tend to do a lot of integration with is Salesforce. NetSuite is another one. And then a whole assortment of different ERPs, as you mentioned. There's, especially in the manufacturing world, there's so many different ERPs out there.
Sure.
But we have our own in-house API team, which is basically a team to build custom integrations.
Okay.
So, our specialty is, finding the right solution. The product is important, but is ultimately we need to know what are the goals, right, that we're trying to achieve. But hopefully that answers the
Yeah,
question for you and
absolutely. No,
listeners.
that's really
Yeah,
helpful, because I know, a lot of people might be listening to this episode on CRM and saying, "Hey, but I have this or I have that. How
yeah.
does all of this fit into my world?" And obviously, there are so many different variables and different pieces of the equation. And for anyone that is, obviously, we're going to leave a link in the show notes for anybody that's looking to reach out to the team over there at Cultivise. But what is the normal process in terms of helping a client get the show on the road, get started? How do they normally
So the
work with
best
you?
thing would be is just to get on a call. I mean, I speak to every prospective client that we're going to be working with. So we're a team of six. We're very agile. But I want to be involved, not because I have to be, because I want to be involved, So, um, get scheduled a call with me, no obligation. We could talk about the business, about the needs, about the tech you have, the tech you don't have, the tech you want, right? We could talk about the boats, the weather. We could talk about whatever you want, right? What
Sure.
sports you like. But really, in all seriousness, the call is the best thing to do. I don't do demos right out of the gate because there's no point of me showing a demo if I don't even know if we're a fit for each other, right?
Right.
So,
No, it makes sense.
so that would be the first step is getting on a call with me.
Okay. No, that's great. This was really a great deep dive. I know there's a lot of different routes we could take in an episode like this, because there is a lot to CRM and integrations and
Absolutely.
automations and all of that. But
If I
really,
could add one thing, Michael, to it, if the listeners are not ready or for whatever reason don't want to get on a call with me, no, I'm not offended. But they could go to afterthelead.com. That's afterthelead.com. You could sign up for our newsletter at Cultivise. We have tons of great content that you can get. You could find all that content on the website. And if they're ready to kind of take it to a next step and they want to learn about the techniques we're talking about how to nurture leads, which is pretty much the conversation today. We have a very easy to read playbook that we wrote, a 13-page book that shows them step by step the processes they need to be able to nurture their leads. And then, like I said, if they want to get on a call, certainly that's an option as well. And there's a link to do that at afterthelead.com.
that sounds like a super handy resource to be sure, and we'll leave that in the show notes as
Great.
well. So thank you for your time on this episode today. And for anybody that is listening, if you're not signed up for our newsletter, just go to softwareoasis.com. We have a webinar every Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. and obviously the Software Spotlight daily on all of the popular channels. So thanks once again, Jason Kramer from Cultivize.
Thank you, Michael.
All right.